All right, so welcome to our September meetup, guys. So welcome everyone to our ANZ WVD user group, so Australia New Zealand user group. So my name is Zane and I'll be your host today. So just I suppose we'll briefly look at what we'll be doing today with our presentations. So today we'll have, well, firstly, let's do the sound and video check, guys, as well. So in the upper right corner, we'll have a little bubble there for a chat. So if you can just, guys, type in yes or yay or no if you can hear me. If you can hear sound, if video is coming through for attendees, that would be great if you can let us know. Yay, we're getting a few yeses here. Aaron, Andrew, Susan, thank you. All right, so now we can move on. So yes, for the interaction, during the webinar or session, rather, our user group session, we will have an interaction with attendees. We'll have it via chat area here. So anytime during the presentations, feel free to pop in your question into chat. And this question will be asked in a Q&A session straight after the presentation. So any questions which are unanswered due to time constraints in the middle of presentations or in the middle of the session, we will take these questions to the final part, to Ask Me Anything part at 7:15 p.m. today, and also we can cover it at after the group photo. That's a surprise, actually, after 7:30 p.m. if people would like to hang out after the conclusion of the official part. So during the session, we ask attendees to have video turned off, sound turned off, and also the session will be fast-paced. Recording will be made available to you guys through our YouTube channel as well. All right, so let's just look at what's next here. No, that's good. Next part, so would like to, so this is our agenda for today, and we'll have 6 p.m. starting now, welcoming intro. At 6:05 we'll have Philip delivering WVD latest news and updates, followed by Q&A. Then we'll have 6:30 p.m. we'll have our WVD FSLogix Containers for WVD deep dive by Aaron Parker, again followed by a Q&A. And 7:15 we'll have Ask Me Anything part by Roshan, and then followed by 7:25 will be Q&A to catch any questions that we left off previously. And then exciting 7:30 p.m. before the official part over, we'll have our group photo opportunity. So we'll encourage everyone just to turn on camera just for a few moments until we actually take our group photo of all attendees, and perhaps we'll make a crazy face there too. So after 7:30, we'll have after conclusion of the official part, we'll have our open floor discussion. If anyone wants to stick around, we'll have questions and answers continued, if you like. So before we go on, continue, just for the introductions, I can see it's a pretty sizable crowd here now. So would be interesting actually to learn where you guys are actually joining from. So if you would like to perhaps introduce yourselves in a chat here and just put in your name and the city you're from, would be interesting to see where you guys are, where everyone is from. So let's see. Right, we've got Aaron from Melbourne. Welcome, Aaron. We've got Susan from Wellington. Welcome. All right, Andrew from Gold Coast. Welcome, Andrew. Neil McLaughlin from Manchester. Welcome, Neil. Good that you've been able to join us today, out of your time zone in UK. We've got Maxim from Sydney. Welcome, Maxim. We've got Najeswara from India. Welcome, guys, and SJ from Wellington as well. So yeah, we've got a very multicultural, definitely crowd today during for this session for September. So welcome everyone. Let's just briefly run through the slides for those who haven't been to our first meetup. So about myself, 20 years in IT, mostly in managed services, a cloud VDI technology advocate and enthusiast. So I'm currently technical MD at EZIP by ThinPrint Australia. Also ANZ WVD user group organizer and host, and WVD Fast Forward Azure LinkedIn group founder and community lead as well. Contact details are there if you would like to reach me. It's available there as well, but otherwise look me up on LinkedIn. It's easy. So history of our WVD community. So originally started around April by Neil McLaughlin, who is currently actually attending us as well here. So hi Neil, Stefan and Patrick. And since then group been growing exponentially, and a lot of content being produced and consumed by the community members as well. So when it comes to groups themselves, this is a list of groups. Actually checked numbers today, so yeah, pretty steady growth there. Well, the largest is 245 for UK WVD user group, so which is very impressive. All right, and what can you expect from our meetups? So we'll meet up once a month, and we'll present latest news and topics. Recordings be available to everyone as well through the YouTube channel, and hopefully physical events, as Philip mentioned earlier, perhaps with pizzas and a few drinks around. So we'll see how that goes hopefully after this drama with COVID is over. So yeah, so this group is for you guys. So if anyone has content that you would like to share, present during the upcoming meetups, please reach out to us, let us know, and we can get this organized as well. Contact details for us, probably easiest is via LinkedIn or just via meetup group as well. So, well, that's the end of my presentation here. And yeah, so now I would like to actually invite our first presenter, and it will be Philip, to deliver a first part for us. Please.
Thanks, Zane.
Yeah, WVD latest news and updates, followed by Q&A. Philip, do you have the controls yet?
Yeah, I reckon I do. So let me just start sharing.
All right, excellent. And yeah, during the presentations, it's best to turn cameras off so we can maximize the presenter's screen, which I will do now. Wow, it's over to you, Philip.
Thanks, Zane. I'm still figuring out all the controls around GoToMeeting. Hi, everyone. Good night. Good day for some of us, which is amazing. Look, a very quick rundown on updates in a very fast-paced, moving environment of WVD. It looks like there is something happening, if not every day, then every week we have something new coming in from friends at Microsoft or from the amazing community worldwide. And I see, some of the community leads that we admire for what they do, like Neil, I see joining us today, are actually here with us in ANZ. Feels good. I feel that our community is actually getting more important, if you wish. And look, we have quality customers in this area. We should have our own success stories. We should have our own learnings that we can share with the global community. And there are few stories already coming in from kind of my side. I will be happy to share it during our next meetups. And I encourage, as Zane did before, each and every one of us to come forward and share your stories, share your learnings. This is an open forum, and we are here to kind of enrich each other and share experience first of all. So quick rundown on the updates and news from my side. I've tried to divide them into sort of official updates, general availability, Microsoft side of WVD, and maybe some services that are helpful for us in WVD deployments. And first, and probably important for a lot of deployments out there, that the new Microsoft Store remote desktop client is now GA. You could probably check a more detailed description of what it means, but for me, the major takeaway from this fact is that Microsoft are planning to have single development engine, if you like, for the underlying RDP for different clients. So they would offer same experience on different platforms. So iOS, macOS, Android, and Windows will get similar experience because of the same underlying RDP. And that's new Microsoft Store client. It's built on that same similar underlying RDP, which is exciting. Hopefully we will have same similar user experience without limitations on different platforms going forward. What I have also taken from the official updates is that Teams client was updated to ensure that client time zone is being used. We're not going to get weird issues of being in, let's say, Sydney, Melbourne time zone and Teams client shifting it to something else for the end user, to UTC or something undesirable. So with the latest Teams client update, the WVD Teams instance will actually assume your client PC time zone, and you're not going to get any confusion with it. WVD is now visible in Azure Advisor, so you're going to get optimization recommendations, love them or hate them, they will be there for us. I'm hoping that some of those recommendations would be WVD specific as well, not just sort of generalized IIS, etc. I have honestly not tested it myself yet, but fingers crossed it's going to be useful for your deployments, for your environments out there. Azure CLI supports WVD. So if you do a lot with automation, right, that's pretty much a new list of extended commands that is available to us to use, right? Microsoft has updated deployment templates, obviously, for the new version. I hope you embrace the new naming convention where the fall update and spring update are gone, and the old WVD version, non-ARM, is now called Classic. So far, so good. And the new one is just WVD. So we are no longer referring to spring update, fall update. We're just saying WVD as a latest ARM version. And the old version, if you still have those deployments, they're referred to as Classic. Microsoft also reported performance improvements in additional regions. So understanding that we have is that there are more gateway services that are localized, and countries listed are UK, France, Norway, South Korea. If you deal with multinationals, maybe an important point for you to take into account. You can reevaluate user experience in those locations. If you had any tensions or not so perfect experience, let's say, you may see some improvements. So that's on the Microsoft, and you can actually get those updates from the official web page. I'm pretty much regurgitating here a bit and inserting my few cents, but that's an official list of updates for August. I want to add to this list something that probably wasn't very apparent for everyone, and based on the previous session and some questions that I have answered, there are a few things in supportive services like Azure Files and AADDS that were added or made generally available not that long ago. For example, with AADDS, you have a regional redundancy option right now. So in fact, you can make it into highly available multi-regional service. And obviously with authentication, that has been GA for a while, but you can use both traditional domain controllers and AADDS to authenticate to Azure Files. So that's solved some time ago and fully supported. On the community side, sorry, I'm a big fan of Marcel Müller from Cipago. His website is blog.itprocloud.de. He's a German guy, an amazing guy, I must say. He updated his WVD admin tool. Again, I've been using that tool for quite some time now in WVD world, probably for indefinite time. And it's been updated and new features are added. So now you get tagging, you get all the updated VM types available to you. It's great. And you can do WVD management for Windows 7 single session. So if you have those projects where you move in Windows 7 instances into non-pooled personal desktops in WVD, you can use WAdmin tool to manage those as well. Marcel, also big credit to him, released his vision of least privilege custom roles for WVD operations. So now you can grab ready-made templates, go through them, enhance them, improve them if you like, but they are pretty good, I have to admit. And you can use those in your production deployments to make sure your administrators have the least privileges required to perform specific tasks. There are also a good announcement that was made through the community around the summary of all the supported authentication methods. The URL is here, so you can go and check it out. Exciting news around, they call it the future of ARM templates. So it's a declarative language, to facilitate declarative resource deployment called Project Bicep. Haven't tested it myself yet. It's all preview stage. It's has been recently announced, but looks very exciting for those of us who do automation, who prefer infrastructure as a code as a way forward. And that may be just the thing we need really to rise the efficiency standards even further. I have also enjoyed reading and contribution of James Rankin, jamesrankin.com, around FSLogix profile bloating and how to fight it, how to change it. He experienced something that some of you may have experienced already, particularly with teams on the first run, where FSLogix profile will explode in size. And if you have large-scale deployments, if you have to cater for storage capacity on those deployments, it's a very useful read. I encourage you to check out what James has done, and the options to kind of fight that bloat, or maybe do nothing is also a good option, but you will get a lot of details from his blog directly. That's really it from my side. I'm pretty confident I'm missing something. There's so much happening in the community. I think there is exciting IGEL conference is happening in Europe, and there would be amazing presenters and speakers, and there would be a lot of experience and knowledge sharing there. So if you have an opportunity, register, attend, bring back the news to the community, share with us. But that's all from me. Happy to answer questions, or if you have any pending questions in your WVD endeavors, I'll try to answer those as well.
Thank you, Philip. That was great. So let's see if we have any questions here for Q&A. Let me see. Yeah, thanks for your presentation here, for your part, for quick update. Let me just, I'll just turn my camera on. So let's see what we've got here. So we've got, well, to have us started, perhaps let's see. Well, here's a commonly asked question, Philip. So, sure. Do we need Azure NetApp files?
Oh yeah. I think we briefly touched on it in the last session. The answer is no, it's not mandatory for sure. Yes, there was a Microsoft recommendation to use Azure NetApp files a long time ago, before Azure files became a mature product for WVD applicability. What I mean by that, it was almost impossible to configure traditional AD authentication to it, or ADDS authentication. wasn't fully supported. Some traditional AD authentication was in preview mode, etc., whereby NetApp files was fully supported and was providing that functionality. In terms of performance and applicability with NetApp files, yes, you have a requirement. I believe it's minimum of 5 TB of storage that you have to provision. Not every deployment out there will require that much for profile storage. So it's kind of filters itself out for some people. And to summarize, you have to also look at performance, right? What Azure NetApp Files offers versus what generic Azure Files offers. And I can tell you that for small and medium scale deployments, Azure Files Premium beats NetApp Files performance almost in every case, right? That's just from personal experience. Don't take it as a gospel. Go and check numbers yourself. But to answer the question in a shorter way, it is not a requirement, right? It used to be recommended as a default option for user profile storage, but no, it's not a requirement. And we actually recommend Azure Files for the majority of deployments now. More questions, please. You are on mute, Zane. I don't think we can hear you.
Sorry, I was muted here. Yes. So the more questions, the better. So hopefully, audience, yeah, be able to add more questions there for Philip. And we've got a next one coming up here.
So I don't know if it's necessarily a question, but it's certainly a good topic. Philip, we messaged about this last week or the week before. Is Azure Active Directory domain services versus Active Directory? So, you know, Azure AADDS is great because there's no requirement to run VMs, and if you're a cloud-only organization, then that's what you're going to have to use because you won't have Active Directory. But the thing with Azure Active Directory domain services is that once I'm inside the virtual desktop, there is no single sign-on into Azure AD applications. So I sign into my WVD desktop. I don't get single sign-on into OneDrive or Office or so on into through Azure AD because there is no concept of hybrid Azure AD join or seamless single sign-on inside AADDS.
Just to add to that, yes, absolutely, you are spot on, and that may be a limitation that some businesses will kind of be put off with, right? But from the user experience point of view, once I launch an Office app and log in once, my credentials would be remembered. It will not request me to log into each and every Office app. It's a one-time login from my experience.
Yeah, so it's good for, I don't know, a persistent desktop. You know, if I'm logging onto a persistent desktop, then those credentials are going to be cached. But if I'm doing a non-persistent desktop, if I'm getting a new session or a new VM each time I log in, then it may not happen every time, but there's a good chance I'm going to have to be prompted to sign in again.
But remember, we using FSLogix for user profiles, so the non-persistency is kind of gone.
Yeah. Well, I still get it. I'd love to be proved wrong. Like I still finding that even the FSLogix profile containers sort of not caching those credentials, or I haven't looked under the hood. Yeah.
I'll prepare a demo for our next session. I'll record a video so I can play it during our next session to show the kind of user experience side to move this to a side, I guess.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you so far. And we've got more questions coming in here. So we've got a question from Andre here. Andre, I believe from Albury, is asking some more information around setting up the WVD admin-friendly environment. Would be good.
Andre, I'll be terrible, and I'll tell you, please speak to me after this meeting. Because what we do, we enable our partners with a step-by-step how-to guide that will take you from zero to hero. You know, you can have fully functional production grade in 48 hours, doing everything yourself if you want. That's one of the things we do for our partners. And talk to me after this meeting. Happy to help.
All right. Thank you, Andre, for a good question there. Excellent. We still have a bit of time, so let's see if we have more questions. So more questions from guys, from attendees. Let's take a look what we've got here. And while you guys are answering questions, yeah, Philip or Aaron, or later on Roshan, yeah, we could have cameras on. I think it's a good idea to actually have a face-to-face during the Q&A sessions. Oh, we've got another question here. Can we enable single sign-on with WVD?
The answer is yes, if you use fully fledged ADFS deployment. And having said that, one of those lines in the news update slide actually has the, sorry, I don't want to reshare, I'll paste it in the chat. Just one sec, I'll grab that line and paste it in the chat for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
So you got all the authentication methods and pros and cons in detail. So check that out, and it will answer that question officially.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you for that, Philip. Well, we've got another question here. Next one is from, let's see, yeah, from Royal, actually. Royal, I think, Royal, you're from Microsoft as well. So Royal is asking, SSO is not yet supported in WVD, actually. Sorry, there we go, that's a statement.
Perfect. It's good to know from first hand. And actually that docs article covers it as well. I'm just checking right now, and yes, I see that there's no full SSO support.
Yeah,
Real,
yeah, okay.
You have to speed up. Yeah, I know you're working on this. We need it now.
Yeah, Rael says here, we're currently working on this.
and sorry, I didn't touch on the MSAI app attach. It's an exciting topic, but because it's only in preview now, I didn't bring it up in the kind of news updates. Definitely a very exciting topic, but it's only preview, public preview stage, so that's the reason I did not touch upon it. We kind of personally, right, with our team, we started working on it in the background, but because it's public preview, still there.
Yeah, no, that's understandable, and you know, hopefully we can maybe even ask if Rael will have a moment to present an update next time in the next meetup.
That would be amazing.
That would be amazing, Rael. So
Rael, you know. For you, metadata locations in Australia, please.
That's right. Yeah, straight from Microsoft guys here. Would be fantastic. Would be great. We would really appreciate it. So yeah, thank you guys. So far we've got Daniel's question here. Daniel's asking, anyone have any idea when metadata locations will be available in the Australia Azure data centers? Philip, I'm not sure if you heard me.
No, yeah, that's the Royal's question. I'm sorry, I'm offloading my responsibility here. But
okay.
to our friends, we're hearing this request as well. Yeah, we're hearing this request as well, that partners want to know and make sure that metadata storage would be local as well. Probably important for customers in highly regulated industries with high compliance requirements. For a lot of SMBs out there, it doesn't matter as much.
Well, yeah,
the data is local, and that's good enough. But for some highly regulated customers, it is important.
Okay, well, if you guys can see all the chats, I think chat is open to everyone now, and Royal is answering this question at the moment.
Yeah.
And so we're getting the answer
really
from Microsoft. Right. Philip, can you see the answers there as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's really appreciated, Royal. We appreciate your input on this.
Yeah, no, thank you, Royal. Yeah, well, Singapore. Questions continue. That's good. How about Singapore and Southeast Asia?
I guess the answer is it's coming. But we have to be a bit patient because I can imagine Royal's team being somewhat over the last half a year, I would say, or more, with quite a bit of unprecedented growth for their product, and probably a lot of it wasn't planned to be on this scale.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah,
Great.
I can hear you.
Yes, I have to stay on mute a bit because I have a lot of kids in the background. But I'm not from product engineering. I'm from product experience. So that means I am in the product group, but I'm not building the product. I work with large enterprise customers in APJ to accelerate their deployments and learn and feed that back in product engineering so that we basically make sure that our product works in real environments for all our customers. So yeah, these initiatives are very important to me to capture that and feed that back. I work on a daily basis with all the product engineering feature PMs, but yeah, just to clarify my role. So I was typing on the answer in regards to the question on Singapore. The reason why we cannot really say when we go to Singapore is because based on our experience on deploying this to Western Europe, so the new geo for the distributed database, is based on that experience we can make up a plan and deploy it to all the other geos. So that's currently, well, we're already working on that for a long time, but it shouldn't take a year or so. It's more a matter of months / half a year, but it's coming.
Great.
Excellent. Well, wheels in motions here. So yeah, thank you so much, Rael, for an update here on this side as well. Excellent. Well, it's time for us to move to. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah. So one thing that is important for customers there is that the main thing that we store in that database are the ARM objects from WVD, so session host, host pool, etc. One of the questions that always pops up for customers is, okay, once it is available, can we move those objects? And unfortunately, that's not possible. That's something that is an Azure limitation. It is something that just as a background information that the Azure ARM product group is working on as well. So in the future, we are planning to make that possible, but not initially.
So if I can just rephrase, so we will have to pretty much recreate workspaces and host pools and redeploy session hosts if we want metadata to live, let's say, locally when that is available.
As it stands today, yes, unless there are miracles happening from the Azure product group. But yeah,
that's really good to know. And when you're saying what you've been asked by, let's say, enterprise customers, what exactly contains in the metadata, the question we ask is the session information. We have brokerage service, we have SQL DB in the backend. So is the session information is being stored? So any username stored in the metadata, that kind of question. Can you just give us a few words on that as well? I'm pretty confident you get that question often as well.
Yeah, so we need to be able to make a user mapping. So there is a level of user data in that database. For the rest, it's absolutely not containing any telemetry information that happens in the session. So from a privacy perspective, what the user is doing, etc., that is not collected. The main thing that is collected for us to make sure that the correct feeds are being represented in the client, in the RDP client, whichever client the user is using, and that the user is able to make that connection. So everything that you were able to do in the past in PowerShell, now in the GUI, that's the type of information that's being stored there.
Right. And I'm sure that would be for us to check what exactly is stored as a metadata, right?
Yeah, so one of the key asks for especially the regulated industries is we want to have that in documentation form, and that is definitely in the backlog. I think we need to wait till the geo distribution has happened before we start delivering that documentation.
So
It will come, but it's just waiting for that to happen.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rael, and Philip as well here. We'll still, just a reminder, we'll have actually plenty of time for further mingling and open floor discussions at around starting from actually 7:15 p.m. and 7:25 and forward. So let's keep that in mind. And now let's hand over to Aaron Parker for our next presentation. So Aaron, I'll make you a presenter now, and it's all yours. Take it away. And
am I showing my screen?
yes, we can see a screen now. Your
Can you see
slides.
it? Hang on. Yeah, slide deck. Excellent. All right, so I'm showing the right screen. Very embarrassing to show the wrong screen. Hey.
Okay, that's good. It's a full screen.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, awesome.
Hey, I was just going to say with questions, if you just want to ask them during the presentation, and it might make it a little bit easier in some respects. So actually what I might do is just turn my camera for a second. So yeah, if there's any questions that come up during the presentation, then absolutely ask away. Yeah, so this session, I guess, is, well, it is.
Sorry, screen sharing disappeared. Sorry.
Did it? Oh, hang on. Let me try again. So we should use Teams. What is this?
That's all right.
There we go. No,
yeah,
there we go.
It's on the right.
Maybe
yeah,
did I hit a button?
It's
all
I
right,
think it's
okay.
oh yeah, that's it. Okay, perfect.
It's taking a while to come up. Cool. Yeah, so this is an FSLogix sort of deep dive session. I guess really what it is a recommended or best practice session. I think it's fair to say that even like past, I don't know, it's been about 12 months now since I think FSLogix has been made freely available to everyone since the acquisition. So that the number of people who are, the audience for FSLogix now has just grown massively. So of course with that comes all of the community feedback and different best practices and finding things out. And Philip, you mentioned that article from James earlier. Yeah, there's lots of those sort of articles that come out. So this is really, I'm going to start sort of at a high level and sort of delve further into it as I go. So real quickly about me, I'm a Principal Modern Workplace Architect at Insentra. I'm based out of Melbourne. So I'm currently in lockdown. I'm looking forward to getting a haircut at some point. I'm a Citrix CTP, along with a couple of other guys. I also run the Citrix, the CUG, so the Citrix user group here in Melbourne. And up until the acquisition, I was part of the FSLogix Technical Advisory Board. So a bit of history with FSLogix. So for this session, just high level agenda, because I'm going to jump into a few things, but really I wanted to start from the sort of a simple, go back to basics is why FSLogix. I think for this sort of audience, the FSLogix stuff is already a well-known commodity, but I think it's important to be able to sort of explain why we want to, what FSLogix does and why we want to, why it's a good thing, I guess. I was going to say value proposition, but it's basically free for everyone now, so we don't have to actually purchase it anymore. And then basically, what it is under the hood and how to implement it, as I say, sort of a best practices approach. So I'm not actually going to spend too much time in slides at all. I've got a demo environment that I'm going to jump into, which kind of looks like this. I've got, obviously it's a WVD environment up in Azure. I've got a VPN connected back to on-prem where I've got Active Directory. I don't actually have any domain controllers up in Azure, but I do have a VPN gateway into Australia Southeast, and my WVD environment actually running in Australia East over in Sydney. So in that I'm going to demonstrate a few things, particularly around storing FSLogix and configuration to do that. And towards the end, I'll even talk about Cloud Cache, because that I think could be an interesting topic. Key piece, Phil touched on this at the top of the the hour as well, talking about storage, so Azure files versus Azure NetApp files. But particularly what I have is a set of VMs in a VNet, and those VMs are storing their FSLogix containers on a storage account. So how does that look? Is my screen updating there? That's not too bad. I think I can see it's a bit of a delay. That's okay. Is it updating on your end okay?
Yeah, it's updating now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. Just let me know if I rush through it. Like if I'm rushing through, like clicking on something I'm talking about and you've missed it, just let me know. I can go back to it. Okay, so is that a question?
Sorry, no, carry on.
No,
carry on.
okay. So I've got my WVD infrastructure, basically just a set of VMs, Windows 10 VMs, and at this stage, and they are storing their FSLogix containers on a storage account. So what I have is my profiles on a basic file share. So it kind of looks a little bit like this. Inside my desktop though, essentially what I'm doing with the FSLogix containers is that I am encapsulating my profile, and for pretty much everyone who's familiar with Windows user profiles, I'm encapsulating, say, my user profile, which is the bit that, as me as a user, is important to me. It contains all of my customizations for my applications. It might contain some of my user data as well, depending on potentially what I'm storing inside there. Is I'm storing that container inside a virtual disk. So I have a virtual disk attached to my virtual machine, and that virtual disk is sitting on basically a file share, which in this case happens to be a storage account. Great thing about storing it on a storage account is that I don't actually need a virtual machine to host these. So I'm just presenting a file share over an SMB protocol. If I was to do this on-prem, it might be Windows Server, it might be something like maybe sitting on a Nutanix platform or NetApp or something like that that presents an SMB file share. But inside Azure, I can choose an Azure storage account, and we can dig into a little bit in a second around Azure storage account and performance considerations, capacity considerations, and things like that, and potentially why you might want to choose Azure NetApp files instead of just a basic Azure storage account. But an Azure storage account keeps it nice and simple as a storage location. So why is this a good thing, or why do we want to take this approach? Well, I think the key piece here is what we're trying to deliver with inside a virtual desktop, whether it's WVD or something else. We're trying to deliver a user experience that is as close to a physical PC that we can possibly make it. So particularly for users who maybe are moving away from a physical PC and providing them with a virtual desktop, they're going to have a set of considerations or expectations, I should say, over how that desktop should perform. So if I'm sitting down in front of me with a laptop and I'm logging onto Windows desktop, I've got a few things. I've got local disk, I've got a CPU, I'm going to have a GPU, but that's a whole nother topic. But those applications, they're all local. And when I log in and start up my applications, I set my preferences, I might set my desktop background. Those applications look and feel and perform just like I would expect across any sort of laptop. So I can log in, set my applications up, do my work, shut the machine down, reboot it, do whatever I need to do, come back and the next day and it's exactly the same. Assuming I don't have any, I've got a good laptop. Probably most of us have got sort of speedy laptops these days, and pretty much everyone's getting SSDs in their machine. So I've got a well-performing machine, and that user experience is what I'm used to. So if I go and pick that up and move it into a virtual desktop environment, I'm doing, first of all, I'm moving the compute away from where the user is. But secondly, because as the administrator would have cost considerations in there, I might not be delivering a persistent environment. I might be delivering a user session from a pool of machines. So I can log into one virtual machine today and do my work. I can log off, and then tomorrow log back into a virtual machine, and it'll be a different machine. Might be the same image and look the same, but if all my user preferences don't follow me, I have an interruption into my workday. Maybe I've got to reset everything up and things like that. So what I want to do as the administrator, I want to ensure that when the user logs on to their virtual desktop, that everything's back the way they expect. Their user environment is back the way that they expect. In addition to that, I think it's also important that the applications that work inside those desktops look and feel and act just like they would on a physical PC as well. So, easy example, Outlook. I've turned on cached mode, so when I'm looking through my email, think users who use their email as their filing system, they want to look through and search. They want search to work. They want that mailbox to be indexed. They want all the mail there instantly. So if I can cache my email just like I do on a physical machine, then I'm going to get that good rich user experience. The other good example then is OneDrive. If I'm deploying OneDrive and OneDrive or even something else that does a similar type of enterprise file and sync type solution, I want to be able to synchronize my documents, and I want to know that when I log back in tomorrow, my documents are still there, and I potentially don't have to wait for those documents to download. So really what we're doing with the FSLogix profile container, or the FSLogix containers, one, we're providing a good user experience. Secondly, we're also trying to simplify the administrative overhead in providing that good user experience. Back in the day, we've probably, a number of us have done this before, might have turned on roaming profiles, redirected app data to a network location, but along with that comes all sorts of operational challenges, long login times, poor performing applications and things like that. So with the FSLogix containers, or particularly in this case, the profile container, I can encapsulate that entire user profile in a virtual disk. So if I go and look at inside that virtual disk and I go and compare that to my actual user profile, those two locations are going to be the same. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm roaming a local profile, attaching it, my profile that's stored inside a virtual disk, and attaching that to my target machine. And then that instantly gives me my entire profile. Yes, it's hosted on a network location, but as far as the applications are concerned, it's just a virtual disk. So if you think about things like user profile disks, they would have had challenges with some particular applications. There are some applications that are very touchy with the way that redirections would occur, whether it's just basic folder redirection or some sort of junction point, that those applications can trip up over those junction points and have issues. Applications might change their behavior if they're running in a virtual machine, whereas what we can do with the FSLogix approach is we can just basically fool the application. The application has no idea that the profile is actually sitting inside in a network location. It just looks just like it would do on a local disk. So what I get at a machine level is if I go to see users, Aaron, it looks like my user profile, but if I dig into this a little bit further, so if I run as an FRX, come on, here we go. Little command line here that enables me to look at all of these redirections. So all the secret sauce, the stuff that I guess that Microsoft bought, was all of the development and smarts that went into the way that FSLogix was doing this redirection stuff. Does it at a very low level, does it in such a way that those applications that might trip up over junction points just won't see this stuff. So here what I can see is I've got my basically my C drive, and then I've got my profile being redirected somewhere here. I can't even see it now. But anyway, I've got a number of disks attached to the machine, and I'm basically getting a blended view of the operating system to the application that just looks like C drive. So how do we go and do this? Well, we've got the FSLogix agent, which we go and install. I saw a question that came up today, I think, if everyone's seen the World of EUC chat, asking about, is there any particular order that I need to install the agent and Office and things like that? No, there isn't. So what we've got is the agent. We have to install the agent. I've got a little module that I wrote called Evergreen. I've got this command called get FSLogix apps. And if you go and open, if you install that module and just run get FSLogix apps, you'll get the latest version of that download, but you can also get it from the docs.microsoft.com. Updated on a semi-regular basis. There used to be an LTSR version, like a long-term service support version, but I think since the acquisition, that sort of notion of an LTSR version of the FSLogix apps agent has just gone away. So download the agent, install it in our image, however I'm deploying that, either manually or via whatever means. Hopefully, maybe I'm using Azure Image Builder or Packer or something like that to automate the deployment. I'm just installing that, and the apps agent enables us for the FSLogix Containers features. It also, the same agent enables the app masking component. I'm assuming we're going to run out of time to talk about app masking. I've got a quick demo here if we need to, but the app masking component of the FSLogix piece is in that agent as well, so I can install that and get all of that functionality. The app masking piece actually uses, or the app masking feature uses this same redirection technology. It's all exactly the same thing, and that's what the agent itself is actually implementing. Once I have installed the agent in my target machines, now that could be in this case, it's WVD. I'm installing on Windows 10, but that could be Windows 10 multi-session. It could be Windows Server 2019 as well that I'm running on WVD. I then can configure those target machines via group policy. So I have a group policy object, and I think this is where we start to get into maybe potentially some best practices. So with the FSLogix containers, we've got two things. We have a profile container, and let me go back to my virtual desktop. Here, I've got my user session logged on, and I have a profile container and I have an Office container. If I go and look at my storage account, go and look into my share on my storage account, I have an FSLogix container share. Inside that, I've got two folders, and I'll come back and explain why this is in a second. But I've got a profile container and Office container. So in the profile container, I've got my profile.vhdx. That's my virtual disk. And in my Office folder, I have an Office container. ODFC stood for Office Data File Container originally, I think. Probably not the best naming, but they renamed it to Office 365 Container, and now I think just Office Container. But what it gives me is the ability to sort of split the profile that I can see here, and the profile container, the contents of that just look just like a profile. But if I go and look at the Office container, so let's just assign this a drive letter, open it up, I can see a number of locations. So if I delve into the ODFC folder, I can see an OST file. So I'm now with my Office container, I'm starting to capture subsettings of the profile. So originally, I think the Office container was sort of marketed by FSLogix as you can go and slot Office container into an existing profile management solution. I could be deploying Citrix Cloud, for example, and use Citrix Profile Management and add the Office container into that, or I could just go and replace that third-party profile management solution and use Profile Container and Office Container together. So what Office Container gives me is the ability to split specific Office locations of the profile, and mostly in particular portions of the local profile that wouldn't normally roam, and push them into the Office container. So I've got a group policy here that's doing a few things, and I'll just talk through this in a second. So you can see here I've got Outlook, talk about Teams, Outlook, OneDrive, SharePoint, OneNote, and so on. So a lot of these things like Outlook cache, OneDrive sync folder, some SharePoint cache, OneNote cache, these are the kind of components that are replaceable, or if I was to say lose my Office or my container, if it was the Office container that I lost, let's say, I don't know, maybe my storage fell over for whatever reason, and I lost my container, the Office container could be easily recreated without impacting the user experience. So, if I was to lose my profile container, that's going to have a much larger impact on the user experience, because if my profile disappears, I've got to log back in and reset everything back up. So what we can do is start to split particular components between the Office container and the profile container. So I would go and put, of course, Office data, which is my Outlook data, which is my Outlook cache, OneDrive into there, because they are just caches. There are OneNote caches that could be synced into there. I have seen, I don't know, this would be an interesting poll to get from people, is what are the size of the OneNote caches you're seeing in your customer environments? Apparently it can actually get pretty big, because people might store all sorts of stuff inside OneNote, but it can get quite big. But as I say, it's just a cache that can be easily recreated. So by splitting these, what I've got then is the ability now, if I can split these out, put my profile in one location, my Office container in a different location, then I could choose to back up and maybe replicate the profile container, but not back up or replicate the Office container, because there'd be I'd say 12 gig for OneNote. Holy cow, that's crazy. I've got a, sorry?
There's addition to some questions and I suppose statements from Peter here. Peter says that the OneNote can get 4 to 12 gigabytes in size.
That's insane. That's crazy. Well, I'll talk about capacity in a second. I think there's a question there that's come up in capacity, but I'll talk about that. And I'll talk about Cloud Cache at the end. I see Paul's got a question there too. So whether it's a soft cost or a hard cost, I've potentially got a cost associated with backup and replication of this data. And if I go and look at my profile, for example, actually I'm looking in wrong location. Let's go look where my actual desktop is. Let's have a look in this storage account. My file share, profile, Aaron, there's my VHDX. So my profile is about 1.1 gig at this point. My Office container is about half a gig. So there is a cost associated, whether it's in dollars or not. There is a cost associated with backup and replication. So I can choose to split these things out and replicate and or backup only what I actually really want to back up. In particular, just a note here, in particular for the Office container, talking about best practices and how that's changed. My approach to this has changed even just in the past, I don't know, 3 months maybe. So there are particular things that I am now not putting in the Office container. First of that is in Teams, and I'll come back to that. Why that is, I'm not putting personalization or Office activation. By setting these to disabled, I'm ensuring that they end up in the profile container. But essentially then what I'm doing with everything else is just putting caches in the Office container, because I know that they are easily replaceable. The other thing I guess I didn't really note with the containers is the size. Now, size for containers starts at roughly 30 gig. So it's a dynamic disk. So you can see in my test lab environment here, I've got half a gig here for my Office container. Basically, using the default settings, my container will grow to a maximum of 30 gigs. So this is one of the first things that we need to be looking at is, okay, how much data am I actually going to have to be caching inside these containers, and what will they grow to? Because they could grow to something very, very large in size. I have seen people trying to artificially limit the size of the profile is hey, these are getting too big, maybe I should make them smaller. The issue with that, at some point, you're going to run into that disk is going to grow to its maximum size, and you have to have some sort of intervention, administrative intervention, to either delete it or try and resize it and make it larger. And that's, if it reaches that maximum size and can't grow any larger, then it could potentially impact the user experience. So either leave it at the default 30 gig or increase it if you need to. Profile container then is pretty straightforward. I'm just going to enable this and then tell it where I want to store this. So particularly for new customers or somebody new to the FSLogix piece, what I'm doing here is I'm just saying, here's my sort of baseline starting point for my profile and Office container configuration. Well, we've just got a desktop that has that is going to have the FSLogix agent on it, and a storage location. Being WVD, that can be a storage account. Storage account's nice and simple to deploy. Storage account now supports Active Directory authentication, making it nice and simple. Good thing about a storage account too is if I go and create a storage account with shares on it, storage account, actually let me go back to there. You can see this share here is 100 gig, and that's sort of the default provisioned capacity. And I can go and resize that. And by changing the size of the share, I also change the performance that's available to me inside that share. There's a couple of good articles in the documentation. I think it's this one. So I'm sort of pretty hesitant to say to customers if they ask the question, hey, what performance do I need? Because it can be it depends answer. But thankfully, Microsoft has this in the documentation now around steady state and sign in, sign out IOPS. So basically, you know, high watermark for IOPS per user, and then once I'm logged in, about 50 to, you know, dropping down to about 10 IOPS. So a premium storage account that I've got provisioned here would help me, and then I would go and change the size of the capacity based on, I guess, the number of users that I have in my environment. I can start with a small share size and grow that. Now, the reason I would go and split these, I guess in my lab here I've got one share, but I could create two shares, one for profile container, one for Office container, so that I can then scale those separately. And I'm probably only going to know how I need to scale that based on any particular environment. There's no hard and fast rule, I think, across everyone's environment, but at least in for using an Azure storage account for storing containers, I can create two shares, one for profile container, one for Office. I've only got one here in the lab, but I can then go and change the size of those, and therefore the performance available to me inside those appropriately, depending on the environment. There is another link here, and I can share these at the end as well. There's a good article here on the differences between Azure files, Azure NetApp files, and I don't know why you would choose this, but you could choose storage spaces direct running a Windows file server on a VM that you're hosting in Azure, but there's just no need to do that anymore. But yeah, there is a cost associated with Azure NetApp files as well, but potentially that can provide you with more performance. But I think for most customers, it's going to be Azure file storage or Azure files on a storage account, making it nice and easy. So we can create our GPO, link the GPO to our target OU that's containing our storage account, our computer accounts. If I'm having to count for different regions, then this location, the VHD location, I'm going to have to base that based on where the desktops are running. So I'm running desktops in Australia East. I'm going to tell those desktops to pull their containers or store the containers on a storage account that's also in Australia East. I don't really want to be trying to spread my desktops and my storage location across regions. I'll come back and talk about cross regions and so on when I talk about Cloud Cache. Now, the other interesting thing I think to note with Office container and profile container, and the reason I'm putting teams now into the profile container and things like personalization and activation data and things like that as well, is that with the profile container, we can create what's called exclusions. So we've certainly done this. Anyone who's with a Citrix background or third-party profile management background will have done this in the past. There are locations within the profile that I don't really need to roam. Or conversely, if I'm choosing a profile solution where I want to roam the user profile environment, I'm going to target the locations inside the profile that I want to roam, because profiles can get very big. We're taking the opposite approach with profile container, in that we are just picking up the entire profile, so therefore we need to exclude locations. So if I look at this machine here, I've got my user profile on c/Aaron, but under local Aaron, I can see a number of additional folders inside here, and in particular, say I've got Teams, for example. So what I'm doing here is I am excluding, if I get this right, I am excluding locations out of the profile, and really what I'm doing here is I'm creating a redirection. I'm telling the FSLogix agent, when you log on, when the user logs on, here's my redirections.xml, which I point to it via group policy, and I say for these locations, which are basically within the profile, so you see user/Aaron/app data roaming Microsoft Teams and so on. So that location redirected or excluded from the user profile. And what happens there is that then that gets redirected out to the real file system. And you can see this back in this FRX list redirects, as I can see all these locations. So I have a bunch of locations that I am redirecting out of the user profile. Now, I think there's some important things to note with this. There is some good documentation in various locations from Microsoft. There's even some from Citrix around this, and saying that here are some locations, some safe locations that you can redirect out of the profile, because the immediate approach, I think, for most administrators is, oh, my profile containers are getting very big. How do I fix that? Let's go chuck in a whole lot of exclusions. Now, as I say, there are these locations that are well documented. On GitHub here, I've got a list of redirections that I maintain, and I've got a script that will take this CSV file and turn it into this redirections.xml, but it is a relatively safe set of exclusions. So a lot of the Teams ones, Philip touched on this before. If these locations were inside the profile, you'll see this is that I launched Teams for the first time, particularly this folder, Service Worker. It writes, or can write up to about 4 gig worth of data inside the profile container. That profile container will expand. So that, as I was saying before, that profile container is it's a VHDX of dynamic virtual disk. It'll grow, but there's nothing in there that will automatically make it shrink. Just like Hyper-V. Is in Hyper-V uses a VHDX format, and those virtual machines, they'll just grow, and you, the administrator, has to step in and reduce the size of the disk if it can be reduced. So Teams kicks in for the first time, blows out the profile container to 4 gig, and then immediately deletes that data. So now I've got a 4 gig profile container with about 3.5 gigs worth of white space in it. It's probably great if it's sitting on a DG file system, but if I go and look at that, I'm going to see a 4 gig profile container, so I can go and exclude that. There are some other locations that I've got listed here, but each of these I think comes with a trade-off, and I've put some notes against these. So appdata/local/assembly, for example, they are .NET Framework shadow copies, or this apps folder. So particularly what will happen with a lot of applications, a lot of modern applications that run and write data inside the user profile is that they use that at runtime inside the user profile. So you can either, let's exclude it from the let's exclude it from the profile container, and particularly if I'm in a non-persistent environment, I'm going to log on to a new machine every time. That application is going to have to rewrite the data at runtime, versus basically caching .NET Framework shadow copies. So if I was, let's say I've got a .NET application that rewrites these shadow copies at launch, if they're not cached in the profile container, then there's potentially going to be an impact on CPU as it goes through and recreates these shadow copies at runtime. So every exclusion, I'm going to have a trade-off. I'm going to either reduce the amount of capacity that I'm consuming for my profile container, or I'm going to shift IO somewhere else, because what I'm actually doing with the exclusion is, by excluding it from the profile container, it's now no longer in the it is now no longer actually in the profile container. It is now hitting the real C drive, and as I say, depending on the application, it could have an impact on CPU. So something to, or put this another way, I think what we're getting to is sort of a default. Let's validate or not have a knee-jerk reaction to just putting everything in exclusions, because there is a trade-off. Another good example here is browser cache locations. You know, if I'm logging on and I have my cache follows me, then I start up web browser again and I go to office.com. It's in the cache. I'm going to have a quick response, versus it's not in the cache and the browser is going to have to recache that. And again, I'm moving IO and CPU, or hitting IO, moving IO somewhere else and potentially hitting CPU. There are other ways that you can limit what's inside the browser cache. There are controls inside the browser that says, okay, only make the cache grow to 100 meg or whatever it is. I think a better way, or potentially, no, let's not say a better way. What I can do in conjunction with using a targeted set of exclusions to exclude just those locations that I know will grow quite large, and there's some basic ones with Teams. Some customers might be running Java or some other application that does something very similar. Is that potentially what I could do is I can prune what's inside the profile. So I've got this this script which basically looks at an XML file that says, okay, well, here's a list of targeted locations inside the profile, and I can run this inside the user session. I can just prune those locations instead. So instead of excluding it and potentially creating some more headaches down the track, let's run a script inside the profile, maybe at log on or log off, whatever it is, and then keep the size of that profile container down, depending on how my user environment behaves. Right. Okay, some other bits and pieces. A really good one, I think, is OneDrive. So coming back to that good user experience, great thing about being able to use OneDrive or sorry, Office container or profile container, whatever it is, then I can provide that native user experience with OneDrive. OneDrive, though, has some considerations with files that are inside here. So see, I've got these always keep on the device. So these files are stored inside my Office container. If I go over here, I'm synchronizing a SharePoint library, and these files are kept offline. So if we go and look at the size of the file here, the size on disk is 0, but the size of the what's actually stored in there is about 157 meg. What a user can do is I can right-click. Actually, before I go and right-click and click always keep on this device. Before I go and do that, let's go and have a look at the size of my Office container. So there it is, 580 meg. So if I go and choose always keep on this device, those are going to download, and I'm going to see my Office container subsequently grow. And there's really not much I can do about that. I think there's menu item I can't really control. There are some third-party tools which might be able to do that, but there's no controls within OneDrive to say don't let users do that. You can use Storage Sense. So Storage Sense now, I think since Windows 10 1903, you can configure Storage Sense to go and take OneDrive, and you can configure this via policy. So I could say, let's make Storage Sense run every day, and any folder that's older than, hasn't been touched in 1 day, automatically turn it into an offline folder. So again, I can see that my container, oh, where'd Storage Sense go? Disappeared. My container will grow, and I'm using tool sets that are inside the operating system now, in this case, Storage Sense, to try and keep the size of that container in check. Have I got my demo? I might not have a demo here. Let me just link to it. So I think we're going to run out of time. There is a great tool, which I'll show you a link at the end. There is a PowerShell script that you can use to shrink the size of the disk. So using this approach, sorry, I'm moving my screen around a bit. Here I'm using Profile Cleanup, right? This runs inside the user session and helps to keep what's inside the profile in check, but eventually that profile container or the Office container will grow, and white space will just be a natural result of data being deleted inside that container, but it won't actually be compacted. So there is a PowerShell script that you can run. User has to be offline, and you can decrease the container by the amount of white space that's available in the container. In that, up to that period though, naturally inside the container, stuff's, yeah, that's it. Invoke FSL shrink disk, thank you. File write and delete operations are going to happen inside the container. So delete operations will occur and create white space, and then new write operations will occur. They will then take up that white space. So the amount of growth isn't just by the amount of, the total amount of writes that are inside there. All right, just last piece I think I've got is Cloud Cache. All right, so the approach I've taken here is, and as I said before, I think the best thing anyone new to FSLogix containers is to take the simplest approach and just use this VHD location setting. So all I'm doing is I'm saying, here's my desktops with the FSLogix agent, linking my group policy to it, and telling those target machines, store your containers on that SMB location over there. Now, what about if I have desktops in multiple regions? So just quickly going back over to my lab over here, I have a resource group here where I've got my my virtual network, my storage account that has my containers on it, and I also have some pooled desktops, and all of this is running in Australia East over in Sydney. But now I want to provide desktops from Melbourne or some other region, either for DR or maybe some sort of active setup. I'm in Melbourne. When I travel to Sydney, I'm going to use desktops in Sydney. So to do that, I could, which is kind of not ideal, I could try and use Azure native tools to try and replicate contents of a storage account or a storage location, or even on-prem. I might be moving from on-prem up into Azure or something like that. I've got to replicate the those containers between regions. Those tool sets are kind of a little bit less than ideal. Maybe if I'm running NetApp files in Azure and NetApp on-prem, I've got some NetApp components which might help me with that. But now we have Cloud Cache, and this is actually what I'm using inside my demo environment. And to date, up until probably, I think the latest release was in June, July, I haven't actually been recommending to customers that they use Cloud Cache. So what Cloud Cache does, and there's a couple of very simple group policy, actually, no, I'm not on the right one. Let me go and open this one. There are a couple of simple group policy components that say go and enable Cloud Cache. I'll show you this cache and write directory in a second. Where's my Cloud Cache? Here I've got a very different look at my locations. So instead of just specifying a simple simple SMB share location within Cloud Cache, what I'm doing is I'm saying, well, here, go and store my containers here in Australia East, and also write those containers to another storage account in Australia Southeast. And that's sort of what I've been showing you through this demonstration. So actually, let me go look at my Office container, because that was growing when I opened up OneDrive. You can see there my OneDrive container has grown. The way this works is now in my desktop that's got Cloud Cache enabled. What I'm doing here is I'm storing my Cloud Cache has cache is definitely the active word in Cloud Cache. I have a local cache on the machine, so technically I could even use Cloud Cache for physical machines if I really wanted to use Profile Container and so on physical devices. You can see things are going on inside there. I'm writing a sort of a cache here locally on my machine, and then I'm also writing my containers both to my storage account in Australia East and Australia Southeast at the same time. So what happens is now my profile container, Office container in both locations are in sync. I could log off a desktop in Sydney, log onto a desktop in Melbourne, and my my profile is there immediately. So you're getting around that issue that we might have had with either active-active or active-passive data centers, whether it's for DR or users moving actively between those data centers. And yeah, finally, I think Cloud Cache is at the point where I can definitely be much more comfortable with it and enable it. And it's here working across 2 storage accounts. It's working pretty well. Zane, I presume we're running well out of time, so probably jump over to questions.
Yes, so let's jump into questions. Questions now.
Yeah, so just first off, sorry. So I got a couple of links here I'll just put up on the screen while we're going through some references. So this article here I've written, which goes through a lot of stuff that I haven't been able to cover today. You know, we talk about storage inside Profile and Office container. A lot of that, you might have some considerations for things that are Office 365 settings. So stop users from putting ISO files in their OneDrive storage account, which is a back-end administrative action. But there's that invoke FSLogix FSL shrink disk and some links to that redirections.xml and the profile cleanup stuff.
Awesome. Thank you, Aaron. So, alrighty, we've got a few questions here coming up. Paul was asking, have you tried Cloud Cache with blob storage?
No. I've not tried it, and don't quote me on this. I don't know how well it works. I won't say who told it to me, but yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. In this setup I've got here, this is 2 SMB locations across 2 storage accounts. Storage accounts now joined to Active Directory or Azure Active Directory, or for authentication, SMB works pretty well, and I'm getting pretty good performance out of just this, and it keeps it simple. You know, when it comes to administrative, if I want to shrink these, I'm going to have to do that across an SMB location anyway. So I think SMB is probably still the simplest protocol to be utilizing at the moment anyway.
Alrighty, excellent. Thank you. And let's see. Question from Rohan. If the session is in a disconnected state for a long time, does the profile VHD gets detached from the session host? And if it is attached to that VM? And if it is still attached?
Not automatically. I have seen a couple of posts around the trap with people running into issues with, I've got a disconnected session and I log on to another session, or I don't pick up the same session, and sort of what happens. I didn't cover this, but I can do, say with the profile container, where is it? I can do, I can't remember where the setting is because I never remember off the top of my head. What I can do is I can support either direct access to the container, or I can say for the first session you get read-write access, the second session gets read-only access. And I think off the top of my head that doesn't work with Cloud Cache. Don't quote me on that because I don't recall exactly. So that second session would get a profile, but any changes inside the profile would be discarded on logoff. But I have seen around the traps that I don't know, it's on containers in use in that session, or in use on the file server. Double check AV exclusions if that storage account is a file server. Is that the question? Like,
hang on,
does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But if I can keep in, you kind of discussing that multi-channel scenario, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so he continues here, and if it is in attached state, does the user get connected to the same session? So,
well, that's not an FSLogix thing at that point, right? It's up to the broker to reconnect them to the same session. So, WVD should connect them to the same session if it's a pooled desktop. Citrix Cloud would do the same thing, but I would imagine there are instances where it doesn't connect them to the same session for whatever reason, but that's a function of the broker, not FSLogix.
okay.
Also, if I may add, Aaron, we've seen this happening where a session was in a disconnected state for a long time, and the broker actually connected user to another session host. What we had to do to resolve it is to log off that disconnected session and reload the user. That was the solution on the spot by the admin staff.
I think for WVD, you've basically got session timeouts using group policy, like RDP settings in group policy, right?
Yeah.
So you can say if it's disconnected for a certain period of time, log it off after 30 minutes or something like that.
Yep. No, great. Yeah, Rohan confirms that. Yeah, that's the only workaround. So
Cool.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question with the screen you have right now? So there's an interesting scenario that I saw recently, fairly large deployment, and they were after this multi-channel functionality. And for some reason, customer understood multi-channel functionality as being able to write to a same profile from multiple session hosts. So imagine you have two different host pools with different apps provisioned from both, and they're launching those different apps for the same account. Right, and their expectation was that multi-channel will work for us.
No.
Yes, and exactly.
No, definitely not. There's this setting, right? Allow concurrent sessions. What that does is it allows concurrent sessions on the same virtual machine, not across two virtual machines.
Correct.
So if I'm on the same virtual machine, that container is already mounted read-write. So I can share the container across two concurrent sessions on the same virtual machine, but does not allow me to do concurrent sessions across two separate virtual machines. This setting, profile type, particularly try for read-write and fall back to read-only, is that the first session will get read-write. The second session will see, hey, that container's locked. I'm only going to open it in read-only. But in most cases, that second session, the user's not likely going to realize that their set things have disappeared or haven't been written back to the profile, I would think.
Oh, I will tell you, it's even weirder that it appears from the first. Look, I have to share this with the group because, don't do it, people. Please do not write in the same VHDX from two different session hosts. So it creates a temporary RW VHDX, right, for that read-write option. And for the option that you have selected currently, it also creates an RO, read-only VHD as well. And what happens?
The read-only VHDX goes on the C drive, though, by default.
Yes, but you will have that read-only VHD as well available, which will have a copy
Yes.
of yeah. So what happens in real life when you're accessing from a secondary session host, let's say additional session host? FSLogix understands that writes are not possible. It presents you with read-only, but user is oblivious to that fact. And when they try to, let's say, create a folder in a desktop, they get an error: file size is too large.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Amazing.
So, so yeah, I mean, that depends on where the one, well, no, I guess two different things here, right? So it could be in this session, I've got OneDrive enabled and I'm using known folder move to redirect these locations to OneDrive, and then OneDrive is synchronizing out of there. So
yep.
I think you wouldn't see that if you were redirecting inside the container to OneDrive, but
correct, not
probably,
scenario, but pretty much, yeah, any file creation that goes into user profile, when the user hits the read-only mode, they get that error.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good for, maybe it's good for like a published application instead of a secondary desktop session. Any other questions, Zane?
All right. Yep, Aaron, running a little bit over time now, but I think it might be a good good opportunity now for a group photo for everyone, and then after that we'll perhaps open the next Ask Me Anything part handled by Roshan. So Aaron, thank you so much. That we can have more Q&A after that part during the Ask Me Anything.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. So so if you guys would like to turn on your cameras and we can have a group photo, and then we'll move into the next part of Ask Me Anything. And for those who would like to stick around, we can then stick around after that as well. So so let's see if we've got cameras going here. So it's we'll only turn it on for just a couple of moments, and then just feel free to turn it off again. And I understand that some people probably will need to go since official time will be 7:30 p.m. finish. So
I can't enable my camera. It says camera sharing is disabled by organizer.
Right, Neil. Right. Sorry.
We should use Teams, right? We've mentioned this.
Yeah, I'll just make you a presenter. So let's see if it's okay. How about now, Neil? Is it working or not yet?
Nope.
No.
I think most of them get that same error when you hover over the camera. It says sharing disabled by organizer.
Right. Okay, well, it's good to know. Webcam, let's see. Okay, if you can enable it. All right, I'll try to enable it, guys. Let's see. I'll try to enable it, sorry. Enable cameras. Boom, boom, boom. All right, so I'm getting some feedback here from Joe. Joe, is it the upper left corner where GoToMeeting is? GoToMeeting and then options. All right, okay, cool. That's fine. Preferences. View, okay. Well, sorry guys, I think we're gonna have to leave this for next time. We need to work it out how to work this the feature for everyone. I apologize. Would have been a nice opportunity, but we'll work it out. The next time we'll do that for next session, for next meetup. But for now, I would like to hand over to Roshan. Roshan, you still with us?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, we're running a little bit over time, but it's yeah, it's your part. WVD, ask me anything. So we've got some questions that are still haven't been answered, and we have room for more as well.
Yeah, so anybody who has any questions, I would appreciate them to either unmute themselves and ask the questions or put them in the chat window. Either me, Philip, or Aaron will go ahead and answer it. So the last part was basically to have a open Q&A discussion. So anybody who has any questions, any thoughts, or any experience that they want to share with respect to Windows Virtual Desktop on a particular project, feel free to do so. And yeah, if we know the answers, we'll do our best to answer them.
Exactly. So let's see what we've got here. So, all right, we've got. All right. Anything would like to ask a question via audio, guys and girls?
Zane, there was a question in the chat that I was just answering for Paul around store-based applications. So MSIX, no, MSIX, Apex applications, I should say. You know, a lot of those things store components inside the user profile, which ideally the FSLogix stuff should fix, and it does to an extent, but there are some particular fixes that are in Windows 10 that are required to actually get these things to work as well. So there's still some work that Microsoft has to do in the operating system. Right now, that one of those fixes is in Windows 10 multi-session to 2004 release. It's not in Windows 10 Enterprise single session 2004 release. So yeah, it makes it a real challenge if you want to run. We got a customer wanting to run whiteboard and to do applications, for example, within virtual desktop, and yeah, can't do it.
Okay. Right. Okay. Thank you, Aaron. There's a question here from Daniel. Roshan.
Yep. So Daniel, we understand your sentiment. It's unfortunately right now available only through Azure Automation. At least that's what I'm aware of. It will be nice for Microsoft to put some management features in terms of auto scaling and expanding on the portal itself. But as of now, the only tool which I'm aware of, there is a MVP from Germany again who's written a tool which kind of automates what the PowerShell does. You can find it in, I think his website is WVD FSLogix or WVD Logic. I can look up the link and I can share that, but that's the closest I found out in terms of auto scaling options.
Yeah, thanks, Roshan.
Right.
Actually, I have another question for I guess everyone really is the Windows 10 multi-sessions only available in Azure WVD right now. Do you think Microsoft would make that available in Citrix or on-prem deployments? Has anyone seen anything? Heard anything?
Yeah, probably on Azure Stack, right?
Oh, Azure Stack, yes. But no, Citrix, if you could get it in Citrix on-prem or even Citrix Cloud.
Citrix Cloud.
Multi-session works. And you're talking about Citrix Cloud and Windows 10 multi-session on Azure?
Yeah, I know that works, but you know, just expanding. It's Microsoft kind of locking down. You know, you can only use the multi-session on Azure. I guess they have
to spend more credits on Azure. Yeah, but go and buy Azure Stack. Azure Stack, and you can run it on-prem. But I don't know if there's anything. I'm not privy to any announcement anyway. But I would assume that's the future of on-prem.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Daniel, for these questions as well. That's awesome. And let's see what else we've got here out of questions. So we've got right. Paul's question was answered. Okay. Right. Maxim. So Maxim was asking, what is the option if we have different host pools with different apps accessed by the same user? Use different file shares profiles? So that was a question probably during Aaron's presentation.
So an FSLogix question, right? So sorry, what was it? I've got 2 sessions across 2 separate host pools.
Okay, so
That's the scenario I've described where the 2 different host pools. Think about it as a siloed app, but same user accesses apps. Yeah.
So if it's native WVD, then yes, I would potentially have to point one host pool to one share and another host pool to a different share. If I was to use Citrix Cloud, so Citrix now has a solution using Citrix Profile Management that I could run profile management in that secondary host pool and merge the changes back into my parent FSLogix profile container. So yeah, I think that's the basic answer. What Philip was saying is, I think, correct too, is that you're just going to run into issues if you try to read write with fallback and all that kind of stuff. Test it before you deploy it and see, make sure it works.
Mm-hmm.
I will go post, Maxim, for your benefit, an article by James as well. So he pretty much says there is an option to combine kind of UPM and FSLogix. Not that I would say, go ahead and do it. I would probably second what Aaron's saying myself, but there is an option, right? It's try it and tell us how it works.
I was just going to say, actually, mind you, I'll put a link in the chat. There's an article I wrote using UEV, which kind of would get you the same thing. So yeah, if it's Azure WVD native, you could use UEV as a way to get the get those settings back into the parent container. So I've just posted that article in the chat.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We had another question here from Paul that I don't think we covered it, or have we? Here's a copy of the question in the chat.
Yeah, so in VHD locations, should I share my screen real quick again, just so I can demonstrate what VHD locations is?
Mm-hmm.
Where is it? VHD locations. So if I go to, VHD locations, which is this one, defines, I'm not using Cloud Cache, I'm just using a simple file share to put the containers on. They can take a multi-string location, but it will hit the first location first, if I'm not incorrect in that statement. As it in, I could put, where Cloud Cache, I can put multiple SMB locations into Cloud Cache and it will write to both locations at the same time. If I put multiple string UNC paths into VHD locations, I think what it does is it hits the first available location, and that's where it stores the profile container. It doesn't write up, keep profile location available and up to date across both locations at the same time.
All right. Thank you, Aaron. Alrighty, and thank you for answering this, Aaron. So any other questions we've got for the Ask Me Anything part, guys, for WVD? Anything else? Let's see. Anyone would like to either drop it in as a chat message or ask it verbally? Right, let's see if we've got any more questions there. And as Roshan mentioned earlier, actually, by the way, maybe you guys, since you were presenting, if you can turn your cameras on, maybe we might as well do that and just, you know, have a face-to-face as a final part, if you can, if you're able to. So as Roshan mentioned at his final part there, if anyone has any good experiences or any experiences really with customers, if you would like to share it in this part right now, that would be good to hear. Good to hear from you. I can see Paul and Susan here. We can see you guys. Hello. Hello, everyone. So, all right, it's working. There we go. We might as well have an opportunity for a group photo today. If everyone can turn the camera on. It suddenly started working all of a sudden. So anyone had experiences you would like to share, you know, or related questions to that? Right. So while you're thinking, maybe so we've got pretty much everyone has cameras on. That's great to see.
A quick one from me. Do you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah, I posted in the chat. So basically, my question around DR, like how do you provide, if you have such experience, how do you provide DR for your customers, clients in the real world? Like, for example, let's say a region goes down, Australia East or Australia Southeast. What do you do? Like, what would you do? Have you ever set up this kind of thing? I know that you can provide, you can set up Azure Site Recovery and, you know, to be able to fail over to a secondary / paid region. But I done it for like a standard VMs, but never done it for exactly for WVD session hosts, which are Windows 10 multi-session. So just I got like some requirement from one of our customers. So like he's asking me how can I make sure that if like Melbourne goes down, I will be able to, you know, allow users to log into another session host pool or whatever it might be like.
We actually had this problem here in the UK. We had an outage in UK South yesterday, which took out one of my customers completely, which they're not very impressed about. So we have to go back and revisit that design. But from the research that I've done initially, the best way to do it is either one or two methods. Option one is split your host pools across multiple regions. Or option B is to have a standby host pool on in a second region that you can spin up. I know what a lot of customers used to do with Citrix PVS, which you can potentially do with WVD, is if you have, say, scripts on standby, where if you want to basically create a host pool in their secondary region, so if you have an outage, I guess there's nothing stopping you from having an on template sat there on standby, where you can initially, I mean, you know how quick it is to spin up a pool. You can spin up 50 hosts within an hour, essentially. So they're probably 3 different strategies that you could use to associate DR.
Yeah, I understand. But in this case, you have to have something like a disaster recovery plan to notify all of your whatever number of users you have, like hundreds, thousands. You know, hey, users, go to, you know, press this button.
Well, yeah, you could easily script that process, right? So normal, if you think about an on-prem process, you have a DR process where you select, okay, here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3, step 4. Especially if you think about the whole bigger picture, like the FSLogix cache, which Aaron was talking about. So if you have your storage regions replicated into other, your storage accounts replicated to other regions. So if you think about what consists of a WVD infrastructure, you've got your obviously your metadata, which is global anyway, so a region outage isn't going to take that out. And then what's left, you've got your host pools, which consist of your VMs, your NICs, and your storage. So as long as you're replicating all those objects into other regions and have a script on standby, and either take the other host pools out of trade mode, for example, you could do, or have a GitHub or have a script ready to go. So in the DR scenario, I can just deploy an ARM template, which could deploy me the same host pools that I've got in region A into region B in the space of 60 minutes, essentially.
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah, thanks.
Consideration if you solved user profiles across those regions and you solved identity, right? Nothing stops you from having session hosts that are marked in a drain mode from logons, and they can be in the allocated state, but logically on the management plane they are in drain mode. Nothing stops you from having that. So you have the allocated VMs pretty much on warm standby. They're just an extension of existing workspace, so your users do not have to change anything really, right? And you taking them out of a drain mode, you starting them up, and that's your potential solution as well.
Is it going to be the same host pool, but just different region? You're saying? Yeah,
you can do cross-regional VNet peering and try that option. I haven't implemented it myself. I have to, I can't put hand on heart and say this is exactly how you do it. But it's just an idea to have it in that sort of warm standby as an option.
Yeah, there's a really good article which I found yesterday, which basically shows you how to split your host pool into different regions. The guy actually did it via an ARM template, where he showed it by deploying the ARM template, and it split one host pool across 3 separate regions. So I'll pick it out and I'll stick it in the chat window.
Sorry, regions or availability zones?
Regions, I believe. I can't remember. Let me.
Because I know that you can spread across 3 availability zones, but haven't seen any articles about regions.
Yeah.
But it's not supported configuration by Microsoft, by the way, if we are talking about availability zones.
Okay. I mean, for me, because it's so, I mean, if you think about your image, the lowest cost option to me would be a script on standby, where you can just spin up in another region.
Yeah.
I guess Maxim's concern here is user experience, right? He's concerned that he will have to recreate the workspace, and users will have to, click on the different workspace icons. So the UX side of it is a challenge.
Yeah, the whole process, like the whole DR management process, is behind that. It's not just technical thing. Yeah, obviously. It's all about how to handle in general. I mean. But yeah, my question was around. My question was around technical things more. Yeah.
Sorry, Paul, you already answering there, I think. Paul.
Yep.
Yeah, just around find out what the business RPOs are and base your solution around that.
Yeah. 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 Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Good question there, Maxim. All right, so shall we, do we have any other things we would like to bring up? Any other questions? Any other experiences? Now is a good time to bring it up. And let's see if any other questions were there.
Just a question around antivirus. What are different customers doing for you guys? Defender, Sophos, McAfee? Is it a bit of a mix or mainly Defender?
Mainly Defender is what I've seen in most of my customers. They kind of have, most of them have this ATP licenses, so they kind of tend to stick with Defender. But here and there I've seen Trend Micro coming in, but not too much.
We're seeing more and more customers move to Defender away from third-party products. It's just makes management so much simpler, performs better, one less thing to worry about. Having said that though, you need E5 to be completely effective with Defender. So could be a bit of shifting dollars around, I think.
Yeah, so yeah, well, Maxim's comment is Sophos and Defender as well. So there we go. All right, cool. Well, shall we then have a group photo since cameras are working this time? And well, let's put our happy faces. Maybe think of I don't know, what makes you happy?
Everything
Coffee, espresso, or WVD user group. All right, so let's go on. Let's go on.
No
3.
reading as it goes down makes me happy.
All right, 3, 2, 1, WVD picture. There we go. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. All right. So we can, if you guys have any more questions or anything, we could you could ask away now, or otherwise we could maybe already start wrapping up for today. So Roshan, did you have anything in mind for Ask Me Anything to prompt any?
Just a quick update. I was just, while the Maxim asked the DR question, I was just going through the GitHub Microsoft Docs update. There is a thread going on where 19 days ago, there is a post saying the WVD DR doc should be available in 3 weeks. So hopefully we'll have some good updates on the disaster recovery for WVD.
All right. Okay. Excellent. Well, all right, guys. So perhaps we should wrap up today's session, and maybe we'll have more content for next session coming up in October. So if any of you guys have you know, content you would like to present, you think might be good and useful for members, then it would be good to actually put it forward. So yeah, let us know, contact us. That would be awesome and would be very much appreciated. So just for if it loads for me, just I'll give you a heads up for topics that have been already brought up during this sign up of September's meetup. So we had proposed topics from our members were WVD architecture flow, roadmaps, and their challenges. That's one topic that one of the members would like to see next time. Then we had also WVD automation as much as possible. So what we can offer in relation to automation. Another topic was WVD auto power off VMs during peak hours. And by the way, if you guys have any quick answers to these now, maybe if it is quick, if you would like to cover those, I don't know if that's the time to do it now. Another question here was another topic for the next sessions is WVD troubleshooting scenarios, especially related to FSLogix. So thank you, Roshan. It was you proposed next topic for maybe next session as well. And VM optimization, speed up login process. So if you guys think that you might be able to present any of these, and what I'll do is actually perhaps in the next few days, I'll send the list of these proposed topics to the whole meetup group, ANZ meetup group, and perhaps if any of you would like to present one of these topics, just reach out to me and let us know.
Okay.
Alrighty. Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone. That was a very nice meetup today, I think, and it's really nice to see everyone face to face as well. while unfortunately some cities are being in a lockdown, at least here we can see each other face to face. So it's good to have a human contact as well. And you know, and once COVID is over, hopefully we can do meetups face to face and do some pizza and beers to come. How about that? That brings a lot of smiles to faces. Sorry, go again.
Can you sponsor me a flight and hotel accommodation for that meetup for me?
Right. That's a good one. We need to think how we can organize that. Neil, yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. Wow. All right, guys. Well, let's have a good evening, and we'll see you hopefully on the next meetup in October.
Okay. Great, Jen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Very much, guys.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye.